All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to create a brain lesson plan. It will look something like this. All right, except for all the stuff that I've got in there isn't really for a lesson plan. This is just all kinds of stuff that is for my students to remind them what kind of they need to do in each section. Okay, so you're going to create, or we're going to create a blank version of this template. So first we need to do is start off with a blank document, and let's rename it to lesson plan template. Okay, something like that. Okay, then of course, let's always just make sure that anyone with the link can view it, because for students, this generally is going to be something that they might put in their e-portfolio. So if you want anyone in the whole wide world to look at it, you need to say anyone with the link can be a viewer. Okay, so we'll just say done. And then the last thing to do is go to the file menu and go down to page setup. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to change your margins. Yours will probably say 1, 1, 1, and 1. Change them to 0.5. So on these template activities that we do, we really want to increase the amount of real estate or space that we have on that document to put in the things that we want to talk about when we're teaching and all those other kinds of things. So anyways, long story short, pages, whole document, portrait mode, 8.5 by 11. Please leave it your color as white, and then go 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, and 0.5, and then say okay. Nothing miraculous will happen other than the fact that these little margins will move a half inch to the left, or a half inch, to the left, and this one would move half inch to the left as well. Okay, all right. So again, the very first thing that we can notice about this is that this whole document is made from a series of tables, and they're individual tables. And the reason I do for that is that tables interact with one another when we don't separate them. And I just find that it makes it harder to deal with them. So we're going to do it my way. Just again, experience shows me that this works the best. So the very first one we're going to do is just a single table. So all of these are tables, and we can find those under the insert menu, and we can go table. And again, this one's just going to be a one by one. And we're just going to say, and then we're just going to write in the word topic. Okay, we're not going to do any fancy formatting yet or anything like that. And then for our next table, we need to make sure that our insertion point right here is below. And if we go here, you're going to see it's going to be, I think, 1 by 2. I can never ever remember whether it's 1 by 2 or 2 by 1. But there we go. It is a 2 by 1. There we go. So on that one, on half of it is going to be date and subject. And I'll just say one thing about the date. I never put in a specific date like today, May 20th. I always just put in day 1, day 2, day 3, just because then every year you got to change this, right? Or every time that you teach this, you need to change it. So I just leave it as a day, and it just makes it, I don't know, a little less work. And then a subject, whatever it is, grade 4 science, grade 12 math 30, whatever it is. Okay, and then of course you can see for the topic. In this case, I just use an example of waste in our world. Okay, so date and subject is what we need on here. So date and subject. Okay, so remember, we're creating a blank lesson plan template that we can actually like type or write in. Okay, so again, we have to have our insertion point down below that table, or otherwise you're going to put a table inside a table, which is not the end of the world, but it can cause problems. So on this one, this is going to be a 2 by 2 table. Okay, so we're going to go here, insert a table. It's 2 by 2. And then here we are going to put outcomes. Down below, we're going to put objectives. Okay. These two are different things. We'll talk about those more in class, or you can read about them in Google Classroom under the completed assignment number 14. And there's all about ICT outcomes, how you find outcomes, and then objectives, exemplars. So there's all kinds of different things in here. There's lots of great links in here that you can investigate as well. Okay. All right. Over here, we're going to put assessment. And down below it, we are going to put in input. Now, input is based on Madeline Hunter's lesson plan design, right? So if you don't know what input is, you should probably look that up under the Madeline Hunter stuff in Google Classroom. All right, so on this, I'm just going to hit enter or return 1, 2, 3 times. And I'm going to do the same thing over here just to give it a little bit of kind of like volume or space. Okay, and these will probably end up being much bigger depending on all the stuff that you put in there. All right, time for another table. So again, you can see how long mine are, right? They've got, because I put a lot of stuff in here. So the next one is I think this is going to be a 1x2 table. So we're going to go over here and we're going to go insert a table again. And this one is a 1x2. And here you can type in rationale. And then I'm going to put this little piece in here. Okay. All right, so we're down here to lesson rationale, and this basically is why you're doing the lesson. So what your lesson is about, but most importantly, why are you doing the things in your lesson the way you're doing them? So for example, if you have kids work in groups, that's great, but why are they working in groups? What's your rationale or your reasoning for doing that? So if you want to copy this text, sorry, I revised this a little bit as I was just looking at it. I'd like to revise it. So please just take a look at this explanation for rationale. And of course, if you've got other questions, don't hesitate to contact me, okay? Obviously, on your real template, we're going to make your lesson. This would come out. You would just delete all of this out, and you would just type in your rationale, okay? All right, next part down. Well, that leads us to the bottom of the page, or does it? Not quite. Okay, when we get to the bottom page, we'll do something else. All right, so the first thing, or the next thing that we're going to do then is add this table, which is, I don't know, 1x3 or 3x1. One of the two. Insert a table, and it is going to be 3x1. Okay, in the first cell or box or rectangle, we're going to type in time. Over in the middle, I'm going to type in teaching points. And then over here, I'm going to type in Bloom's level. Okay. And then what I can do is I can scrunch these over just by mousing over it, and it'll give us that right and left arrow. And I'm going to do the same thing with Bloom's level over here. I'm just going to scrunch it down just so it doesn't go onto two lines. So, all right. And then what I'll do is I'll just highlight it all, and I'm going to center all my stuff like so. If you wanted to make this bigger, you could. I'll make the whole thing a little bit bigger. There we go. But if you wanted to make these fonts a little bit bigger, you certainly could. And that'll be something you can do at the very end. You can do all the making it pretty kind of things with fonts and all those kinds of things later on. Okay, fonts and colors and things like that. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do another 3x1 table, and we'll kind of continue that all the way down. But let's do two more kind of manually, and then we can just copy and paste the rest. Okay, so I'm just going to insert another table. Remember that your insertion point should be right here. So we're going to go insert a table, pardon for that big yawn. I don't know why I'm yawning. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then under here, you'll see that it's the same kind of idea, right? And so we'll scrunch this divider line up. We'll just kind of eyeball it. That's pretty close, actually. And maybe about like so. Okay, and so you don't need to type Bloom's level and time in these boxes now. But this is going to be our anticipatory set. Anticipatory set. Some people call it, and we can call it if you want, the hook. Okay, and if you want, you can add anything else that you want in here. Just remember that anticipatory set is part of Madeline Hunter's overall lesson design. Okay. All right. The next table that we're going to create down below here, and I might just give it a couple of enters there, like so. So click the insertion point there. Insert again another table that's going to be a 3x1. We'll adjust these lines just by click, hold, and drag them over. Okay, and this is going to be segment, what we're going to call segment 1, or yeah, I'm just going to 0, 1. Okay, and what I'd like you to remember about this is in the segment, we're going to call those chunks. Okay, so this is this lesson plan is a crossover between Madeline Hunter's ideas and another lady's name. Her name is Marcia Tate. Okay, so in each segment, we're going to have a chunk, which is the teaching part. So maybe we'll just put that in there, the teaching part. Okay, and then down below, I don't think we need that many. We can have what we call a chew, and what you're going to do is you are going to give the students an activity to do to help solidify the content or the teaching parts that you're teaching up here. Okay, so if we look at our example again here, now we have a segment 2 and a segment 3 and a closure. So here's what we're going to do. Since we know how to do these tables already fairly decently, what we're going to do is we're just going to grab it, we're going to copy it, and then we're going to paste it twice. That's segment 2, that's segment 3, and then this last one will be segment, the closure segment. Okay, so I'm just going to add that right in there right now. Closure, and you can have a chew in a closure, and that's okay. That's all good. Okay. All right. And then, so we got segment 1. I'm just going to change this to segment 2 and segment 3. And the amount of segments you have is only dependent on the amount of time you have to teach the overall lesson, right? So if you have 90 minutes, you can have many more segments. If you are teaching lower elementary and you've got 20 minutes to teach, you're probably going to have an anticipatory set, a segment, and a closure, and that's it. So if any tables or any segments that you don't need, all you got to do is right click in it and go delete table, and it will automatically delete it. Okay, so that's how you can operate with these tables. Now we've got all the way down to the closure done. So we're going to need a couple 2x1 tables, or 3 of them actually. Next class, displays and materials, and teaching points. So insert table, table, there we go, to 1x2, and this is going to be next class. So this is stuff that you want to remind yourself, or you want to remind the students to do or bring for the next class. Okay, I'm going to copy that, paste it actually 2 more times. This is going to be displays and materials, so that's anything you need to conduct your lesson. In some lessons, it's easy. They need to bring something to write on a pen. Easy peasy, right? In some classes, it might be like an art or a drama or a phys ed class where there's lots of displays. They might need pennies and pylons and a ball and maybe different kinds of balls and, all kinds of stuff, right? And then the last one here of these is what did I call it? Teacher notes? Yeah, teaching notes. So teaching notes. Okay, and that you can't really fill this in until you've taught the lesson before. But this is where then you would say, okay, next time when I'm doing that science experiment, I'll make sure I let something else cool down before I do something else, right? It's just notes to yourself about how you want to, things you might want to do or change in the next lesson. So basically that is a template. Okay, let's add in the footer. So I'd like you to add in your teacher name. So Mr. or Ms., whatever, however you identify. Okay, and just hit spacebar after that, and we're going to insert a page number under the insert menu, page number, and we're going to do this. Now it shows you there in the right bottom right corner. I don't know, that's just to fool us because it doesn't happen that way. So I put it in like that, and then I just make sure that my insertion point is flashing in front of the 1. I'm just going to tab it over. This is my tab until it goes on to the next line, and then I'll backspace once, and I'm done. The other thing I do here with that, and I should have done this before I did it actually, is I usually make that font smaller, so it doesn't need to be big. And I'll just tab it over again until it goes on to a second line, and then backspace again. All right, just the last little piece here is just sort of making it pretty. So, I mean, we chose, I think Arial's the default font. And if you want to change your font to something else, I just selected everything. I love this font. That one's my favorite. Right now, I'm going to make everything 12-point font. Some of them are going to be different, though. You might want to make your topic, 14-point, maybe even bold it. Same thing with these other ones. If you want, you can do that. But what I'd like you to do on these main areas, like the topic, and you can see the ones that I've highlighted in this example, right, is I want you to give them some color. Okay, now this is going to be our first little exercise in what we call complementary colors. So I want this this table to have like a background color. What you're going to do is make sure that you're just clicked inside it. You're going to go up to the paint can, and then you're going to choose any of these colors. Now you can add custom colors, but that's a whole different ball of wax. Okay, but we're talking about complementary colors. So what I want you to look at is every row, all of these colors are complementary to one another. So if I started on this third row and said I wanted to add, I'm going to go a little bit lighter. I'll go like that. Yeah, and I chose that one. Then my next one can be any one of these colors that I want. So the next one to colorize, or whatever you want to call it after that, is the rationale, right? So we scooch on down here, and whether you centered the rationale or not is up to you. But so then remember just 1 second here. I always just want to make sure I am I don't ever count this row, or really, I guess I do. So we're going to be 1, 2, 3 down from there. Okay, so I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to make it orange. Okay, you can see those two colors kind of work together, right? And then here, I mean, I guess you could make them multiple colors if you want, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to make them colors that we can live with. Next class, same idea. A little bit of green, a little bit of blue, and a little bit of purple. Okay, now one of the things that we got to be mindful of is if we're using darker colors, and that's totally cool, and I'll just give you an example up here. If I would have chose, let's say, this dark red, that's good. But see how the font is not that easy to read anymore? So we got to choose complementary colors, but we also got to make sure be aware of our contrast of light on dark or dark on light. So we've got a dark background, so what we're probably going to want is a lighter font, and white works just perfectly. Okay, and then of course, again, depending on the colors scheme that you're going with, you might have to do that for your other ones that are colored as well. But for me, that light red works really well. Now, that is it. That is basically the blank template. Okay, now you can make a template that has all of these, little hints and notes to self kind of idea. But then when you're going to create your own template for a lesson, what you're going to need to do is you're going to have to end up deleting all of that stuff out of there anyways. So what I recommend is this, and I'll just cut this out for a sec, is that you have a blank template that looks exactly like this one, with everything labeled and all that good stuff, but it has nothing in the tables written other than our headings. If you want one that has all of this stuff, then create a second one. So now this is your template. Go File, make a copy, call it whatever you want to call it after you make the copy, and then it could be lesson plan template with notes or something like that. And then you could have a blank one to use when you want to write lessons, and you have what a bradder, what am I supposed to do in that one again? And then you can have the notes to yourself. Anyways, hopefully this is helpful. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, don't hesitate to get a hold of me. Thanks.